Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to The Dr. Diane Show. Stay with us for the next half hour where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Each time on The Dr. Diane Show, I have experts from around the country discussing cutting edge topics on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. I'm happy to be joined today by Bruce Cryer. He is the former CEO of HeartMath. Bruce brings more than 4 decades of experience in business innovation, heart centered values, optimal performance, and artistic expression to everything he does. His passion for the intersection between optimal health, spirituality, and human performance found a home when he became a founding director of the acclaimed HeartMath Institute and later was named CEO of HeartMath LLC, a position he held for 11 years. Bruce is the founder and senior advisor for the Integrative Health Institute at Salem University and formerly was the CEO of the Graduate Institute in Bethany, Connecticut. The Graduate Institute's core curriculum was purchased by Salem and became the Integrative Health Institute. Bruce's deepest passion is helping to inspire and awaken the heart intelligence of anyone he meets through tools and life wisdom that are both life-changing and sustainable. Bruce is now 13 years cancer-free and 12 years singing, dancing, and hiking on titanium hips. So, welcome, Bruce. I don't know what dancing on titanium hips is like, but it sounds fascinating.
Well, fortunately, it doesn't feel odd at all. In fact, except that when I was recovering from having double hip replacement surgery, I did not dream that I would ever dance again. I somehow imagined myself as sort of the Tin Man, being a bit stiff, but at least able to walk without pain and hike without pain. That was my aspiration: hike and walk without pain. And when somebody kind of challenged me to try this dance thing that I started back in 2012, I thought, whoa, 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 whoa! 2 hours of nonstop dance? You got to be kidding me! I'm in shape for maybe 5 minutes if I'm lucky. And I tried it, and now I'm a dancer, as you may remember from our conversation before. So dancing was not weird for me, but doing it fairly soon after double hip replacement surgery was a little bit scary. Anyway, it turned out that my body would adapt as much as I wanted it to. And the more I stretched and the more I rebuilt the muscles that needed to be rebuilt and the ligaments and everything else, the sky was the limit. So I jokingly say, you don't need to pity me for having titanium hips. Watch out. I'm the guy with titanium hips.
Exactly. You're bionic now.
I'm bionic. Absolutely. And I know a
So,
lot of TSA agents very well as well.
I bet because you set all the all the
Totally.
sensors off for sure. Oh my
Totally.
God, that is too funny. So that leads me to my first question for you, just in terms of that experience and the amazing things that the body can do. And more so when we come from a holistic, natural, integrative type of lifestyle. So, what got you interested in that whole arena?
Well, it goes back so far. It's hard to think of a time. I know I was having sort of a kind of a spiritual awakening as a teenager, and I grew up in the 50s and 60s. And so for me, the teenage years were Woodstock, marching against the war in Vietnam, civil rights. I lived in New Jersey, not far from Newark, and there was huge clashes, between blacks and white. All that was going on, very much alive. I had two brothers sent to Vietnam, both of whom got wounded. So there was a lot of turmoil in my life, and I was exploring, like so many in my generation did. And it was the work of Henry David Thoreau, the transcendental writer, that kind of got me turned on to a sort of spiritual approach to life. And he talked about, Hindu scripture and stuff that writers from the 1850s weren't normally talking about. I thought, who is this? What's this world that they're describing? And one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. And I just found myself drawn more and more. And later got in, I was 19 in college, and there was a boycott against the high price of hamburger meat. And housewives around the US, this was like 1972 or something, and we're boycotting. And I'm like a young college kind of an activist, and yeah, I'm going to support the housewives. I'm going to stop eating it. I'm going to stop eating meat. And then I started studying, okay, what's the impact of stopping eating meat, and started exploring vegetarianism, as was a thing at the time. And one thing led to another, and a lot of the books around health were spiritual, and a lot of the books about spirituality were about health. And so there was this intersection already from what I was reading and studying, where you kind of, you got one and then you got another as well. I was taking yoga, and everybody teaching yoga were vegetarians, and they had the whole perspective. And a lot of them ran a health food store where I used to buy a lot of my stuff in New York City. So all of that was sort of informing itself. And I just felt myself, this is me. I mean, this is exactly the kind of person that I am, and wanting to become and learn more about. So it all just felt sort of natural. It's kind of a natural flow.
Yeah, I think that's how we all come to it, actually, whether it's through like some type of health issue, or just you're exposed to something or whatever. It comes down to, this feels really right. In fact, it's funny that came up because I literally just finished an article for one of my magazines about the first time that I heard someone say that they believe that we are spirits having a human experience, not the other way around, not where, oh, we're
Yeah.
humans having a spiritual experience. No, we're spirits having a human experience. I was like, what? But there was something about that statement that just felt right, like what you were saying, right? And that kind of led me down this whole path of just what I've studied in terms of spirituality and metaphysics and all that kind of stuff. So it does come down to, I think just what feels right for you, essentially, and that's the path you go down.
Exactly. And I found in my journey, because it's been many decades now, I have to keep using that same principle of what feels right, because there's so much information, and especially in the last 15, 20 years, because of the internet, there's so much information, and you could drive yourself absolutely crazy with reading everybody's opinion on supplements or non-supplements or vaccines or non-vaccines and all this stuff. And you can drive yourself absolutely crazy. And I rely more on my inner guidance than ever. I rely more on, what is my body telling me? What is my heart and soul telling me? Yes, I want the information. I'm constantly studying and learning about new supplementation and new biohacking methods. But at the end of the day, somebody else's enthusiasm is less interesting to me than, does it check out for me at this stage of my life? That's what matters.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And also, I think the fact that you've had as mentioned in your bio, you've had a significant health journey, and that has to affect just your views on health and well-being to an extent.
Yeah, to say the least. And it's not to say that I wasn't already into holistic integrated principles. I was. I mean, I was CEO of HeartMath when all this happened. So I'd already been teaching around these topics for almost 20 years when I got sick. And so it wasn't like this was a brand new, and then I got holistic after I had the cancer diagnosis. No, I already had it, already had the philosophy and already had the practice, but still got what I got and went through what I went through, which also taught me that if we make everything too linear and assume that everything that goes on in our body is a result of something that we have done wrong, I don't think that's the biggest picture. I think sometimes there's certain lessons that we're coming in to learn in this life. And sometimes it's a physical thing that is going to give us the learning that we need around something. Or sometimes it's a financial upset that gives us the learning that we need. Sometimes it's a relationship. It isn't necessarily just, oh, you did something wrong, that's why the relationship ended. Or you did something wrong, that's why you lost the money. Or you did something wrong, that's why you got sick. I think, of course, behaviors and mindset make a huge difference, but it's not the whole picture.
Right.
And so I think it's easy for people to get on this path to start to judge others for, oh, you got sick. Oh, you need to look at your childhood trauma. And that maybe they do, but how are you so smart that you're sure that's what the issue is, right?
Right.
And I think there's too many people that get a little bit on their high horse instead of having the humility to say, I don't know why you got sick. Here's some things that might help, that have helped me. And
Right.
I'm not your doctor, and I even if I was your doctor, I wouldn't know all that I could know about you. So how could I ever know that? You
Yeah.
know?
That's something that I think, that I hope more people are becoming more aware of and also embracing, is that it's the personal responsibility, right? It's like, it's up to you at the end of the day to, like we just said, to decide what feels right for you, to figure out why you have a lesson that you have to learn, whether that comes in the form of a disease or financial or relationship or whatever. And sometimes it could come, you could have all three of those in a lifetime, for sure. Like, just learning different lessons in different areas for sure. But it's about, what do you do with that information,
Yeah,
and how do you learn the lesson, so to speak?
exactly. What do we do with it is what matters. Just like the topic of stress that I've taught about for forever because of HeartMath. Stress is not the event. Stress is how we choose to react to that event. I used to say in our workshops, HeartMath workshops, you could interview 50 people in the same traffic jam and have 50 entirely different responses. There's some people listening to Mozart, others listening to hip hop, like, oh, cool. Others saying, thank God I'm late. I'm going to miss that meeting. Yes. Other
And
people
others freaking out.
and others freaking out and reaching for the 45 in the glove compartment. I mean, that's crazy responses. So is the event the stressor, or is it our reaction? I mean, sure, there are stressful things that anybody would react with stress to, but how we react is still our choice. And that to me is a huge point that is hard to sometimes believe, especially if it's somebody doing something to you that seems so unfair or so arrogant or so vicious or mean or whatever. It's like, how dare they? Well, you're right. On the other hand, how dare you do that to yourself to have that reaction when you know better,
Right, because the longer you hang on to that, the more stress you're going to continue to cause your body and your system and all that.
Exactly.
So you've coached many people around well-being, performance, and health. Anything new, like what's cutting edge, what's up and coming? What do you want to tell us about that you're teaching these days?
Well, I think it's interesting with this coming out of the whole COVID period and a lot of awakening that people had of wherever they are on the spectrum of medically or politically or anything. I think a kind of a universal sense that many had was, I've got to take responsibility for myself now in a whole nother level, because if I don't, there are going to be things that happen. The pandemic was one, and that ain't it. I mean, there will be more things that are also out of our control, and it still comes back to, am I prepared? What's my body doing? What's my immune system doing, and all that. And I think the other thing that was interesting about the pandemic is that we were so cut off in many ways from many of our usual ways of relating and connecting with others, that this sense of isolation was really extreme for a lot of people, myself included. And I had 3 years of holidays where I was with no family members at all for 3 years. None, zero, not a partner, not parents, not siblings, not my daughter, not cousins. And that was all pandemic related. And so it came back to, well, what am I going to do about that isolation? It's not their fault. And it's nobody's fault, really. It's still up to me. What do I do? So all this is to say that I think there's been a sense in a lot of people is, I need help. We've reached a point where, and I say this about myself, as long as I've been on a spiritual path, a personal development, personal growth, and health path, I still feel like I need help. I still feel like there are smarter people than me, or people that have studied more in certain areas than I will ever. And so I need help. And so to me, there's this upswing in the need for health coaches. And that's both on the level of just the individual doesn't have the background like you have, Diane, and like I have, that have studied this for years, but they're just coming into it and need some guidance. And I think that's a big issue that didn't used to be there. And I think we're seeing it even in things like US healthcare system, where more and more health systems are recognizing there's this big gap in the continuum of care for many people, where they get sick. Of course, this is all after the fact stuff, not about prevention, but they get sick, they get the treatment, they get the diagnosis, they get the prescription or whatever they get. And then there's a long waiting period before they have another visit to the doctor, or whatever is their process. Could be the naturopath for that matter. But who's helping them along the way? Is there anybody? And usually there's no one. And so compliance is bad about whatever it may be. And that's, again, in traditional medicine as well as integrative medicine. People don't do the integrative practices that much better than they do the prescription drugs, right? Because you still need assistance. You need a guide. You need somebody to kind of pat you on the back and say, you're doing great. It's okay if you're not feeling better today. It's really okay. Life is sometimes not linear. It's not like a little better every day. Some days, I don't know, it's worse today. But to have somebody there that can support you in that. So to me, there's this kind of multiple reasons why the idea of health coaching is getting more and more important. both from just how healthcare is handled and how we need to take care of each other better, but also just at the individual level. I don't know enough. I need somebody that can keep me on track, coach me where I need a little boost here and there, and help me get clear on what I want. So to me, that's all kind of feeding into the interest in health coaching. And that's something I never kind of was trained in as a health coach per se. I've done a lot of coaching around the HeartMath tools and health in general, or around the stuff that I had taught, but learning the skills of a coach and how to translate that into integrative health practices is a newer dimension.
Yeah, definitely. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, somebody might have help, like a person who's going through an illness might have a caregiver, let's say, that helps them. But that doesn't mean that that caregiver has to be or should be all things to them, right? Like the caregiver, and I'm going to say the caregiver probably needs the health coach too, because
Yes,
typically the caregiver is the one whose whose self-care goes out the window. And so
totally.
both of you need help. And even me, even my background in exercise physiology and health, and I've been through a coaching program and all that. I've had a coach for years, whether it's a spiritual coach or a business coach. I mean, just because I've always seen the value in it. And you don't know what you don't know, right? Like sometimes you need somebody else to be objective about things, or you want to bounce ideas off of things, or you just need support, like you were saying. So it is something that I feel like people kind of looked at, when it first came out, this career of health coaches. People were kind of like, like, what is that? I mean, just, do we really need that? It's like nice to have. But now I
Yeah.
feel it's like really important in the role of doing self-care for yourself, as much as like getting a massage, because coaches can do so much for you that I think people don't even realize. And it's I think it's like a strategic, invaluable person to have on your team.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I'm struck by having met somebody about a year ago who we later hired at Salem University. Her name is Amy Daly, and she is a board certified health coach, certified by the NBHWC, which, as you probably know, is the kind of gold standard for health coaching. And if you've got an MBHWC certification as a health coach, that means you can say I'm board certified, which is a pretty big deal, because the label board certified in health in general that's a big deal. If it's a pediatrician who's board certified, I'd go to that guy or that lady instead of somebody who wasn't board certified. And that would be true of any specialty. So that now exists for health coaches. And before I met her, I thought, okay, she's board certified, cool. She's probably really smart. Then as I actually started talking to her, I realized she's really caring, and she's smart, but she's really caring. And I thought, as I was meeting her, and the first time we did a webinar together, I thought, I want people to meet her, because her vibe is like, how could you not feel supported by this woman? She just has this caring, supportive vibe like you would want. Her job, she's not a drill sergeant at all. She's not trying to give me 20, Diane, give me 20. That's not her vibe at all. It's like not being just a fluff muffin either. She's not, has no backbone or any strength, but a supportive presence. And I think that's what the image of health coaching has become, is that people need this, because issues around personal health create enormous vulnerability. I mean, I will acknowledge right now, the cancer I had was bladder cancer, which any guy does not ever want to go through. Women wouldn't either. It seems to be more prevalent in men, but it's a lot of vulnerability about how we get sick sometimes.
Mm.
And it's edgy feeling. Well, who do you go to talk to about a topic like that? I didn't have a health coach. I had luckily a very strong support system at the time, because I was part of the HeartMath organization. So I had people to kind of help. But my point is that a lot of the health issues we go through, there is a lot of fear involved. There's anxiety involved. There could be a family history, which I'm realizing I just hit 40. I can't keep ignoring this. I got to take this thing seriously. Like, we have a family history of obesity, and therefore we have a family history of heart disease and diabetes. And that's real. And so, I mean, I know somebody now who is on very rigid protocols about her weight and about her blood sugar content. She's in her 30s, not because she has any indication of any health problems, but the family history is so strong. She is operating as though she was diabetic.
Right.
to make
Which probably
super
isn't a
sure
bad
we know
thing,
it.
but also doesn't mean that those genes are going to get turned on, as we know,
Totally.
family history is
Exactly.
going to make you a little more susceptible, but,
Yeah.
there's lots of studies that show it doesn't really have an effect, which is fascinating when you look at like twins or things like that. But I think it's
Right.
smart. I mean, why not do what she's doing? It's not going to hurt. If anything,
Exactly.
it's just going to help her body. And as she ages, keep that
Exactly.
metabolism
Exactly.
pristine for sure. So there's I don't know if I want to call this a subspecialty, but there's health coaching and there's integrative health coaching. So explain to us what integrative health coaching is.
Sure. Well, how I explain integrative health is it's two levels. One is that we are multidimensional beings, us humans. We're spiritual, we're mental, we're emotional, we're physical. Some people say, don't say the spiritual word. Okay, fine. Physical, mental, emotional. That if that's as far as you want to go, that's fine. We're all those parts, and likewise, we as health, the health industry or the health field has expanded in more and more areas. It's become pretty obvious that oftentimes we need an integrative approach. We need to do a variety of things. When I had a large tumor, my first thought was, I want to see if I can heal this with homeopathy or something else. No, the impulse was strong, especially in talking to my doctor, what he thought was the issue. A surgery was the right move. Everybody wouldn't have felt that way, but I did. Now, in the aftermath of that, absolutely, I was doing every integrative thing I possibly could. From what can I change in my diet? What can I change in my lifestyle? What can I change to make sure I don't ever get this back? So my point being, there's an integrative approach. But the real point, how I like to illustrate this, is that when I sat in the doctor's office back in 2009, and I knew I had very strong bad symptoms in my body, and the doctor had told me there was a tumor, and he said, based on where it is in your body, it's definitely cancer. We don't even have to do the biopsy. We know it's cancer. Non-cancerous tumors do not grow in a bladder. I thought, okay, that's bad news, but it's sort of, at least we know.
Hmm.
At least there's the wondering now for the next weeks or until the surgery. And but my point of bringing up the story was, so when I sat there in the realization of, I have cancer right now in my body. If we were only one dimensional, it would have been only my body responding to that. But of course, it wasn't just my body. In fact, my mind was going a mile a minute. And right away I said, well, I'm supposed to go to the UK in 3 weeks. I will cancel if I'm putting myself at risk at all. I'm not attached to this. But if you think it's okay, I am committed, and blah, blah, blah. But my mind was working overtime. And my emotions, like, wow, I'm one of those people. The C word, it's me, it's inside me as we speak, the emotions of all that. And in my case, spiritually, even, why me? Why now? Wow. So all of those parts of me were all responding. So we are all of those things. And so just as there were probably a multitude of causes for why I got it, there would also need to be a multitude of integrated, complementary approaches to help me out of it. End of the story for everybody listening, hearing this for the first time, I'm 13 and a half years cancer free. And when I hit the 10-year mark, the doctor who'd been testing me every 3 months, then every 6 months, then every year, then every 2 years, up to the 10-year mark, there was never any sign of anything changing. Nothing was getting worse or in any way. He finally said, okay, now you're at the 10-year mark. You are now in the normal population. It's not a case of remission. The tumor has been gone for 10 years. It is not in your body. And in fact, based on your overall health, you're at less likelihood of getting anything like that again than other guys your age, because of how you take care of yourself. And I think, when I took a couple of years ago, I had my biological age tested, and my biological age was 31 years younger than my chronological age. So the test said I was 36 and I was 67. And so I came back from cancer, from staph infections that got into my blood, which is a life-threatening condition, from having both hips replaced right after losing my mother as my marriage was ending. So all of that went on, and still was able to get back to not only health, but a level of viability biologically, which was like, damn, 36. That was way better than I would have expected. I thought maybe I was 50.
Right.
That would have been fine because I
Well,
was
you better be
67.
taking care of yourself because you got another 60 years to live then.
Well, I'm shooting for another 50. I did a meditation recently and I got a vibe like you're starting the next 50, but
Awesome.
50. Okay. Okay. 50. Okay. I'll go with that and see what
Why
happens.
not? Why not? It's not
Why
that
not?
far off to be, when you think about it from our perspective,
Yeah.
like all the things that longevity medicine and everything that we have, tools that we have, and just the way we're taking better care of ourselves. I think it would not be unusual for people to be living well to 100 and a little bit past by the time we get to that age.
Yes. I'm closer than you are, Diane, but
That's
that's okay.
okay then.
Yeah. So anyway, back to your question, what makes it, what's integrative health coaching? It's just acknowledging what I just said, that anybody's health issues, there are a multitude of factors going into why they have a health issue and a multitude of approaches that could be useful to them. It's not just about getting the right pill because you've got the weight problem. It's like, well, what is going on emotionally that's causing you to continue to eat the food that you kind of know isn't good for you, but you keep doing it? What's the emotional issue there?
Right. All up there.
Yeah,
Yep, for
so
sure.
that's what integrative health coaching recognizes is it's not just linear. It's not just disease happens, get the drug. It's
Right.
it's got to be more sophisticated and more intelligent than that. Yeah.
So you have a fascinating new position at the Integrative Health Institute and Salem University. So just, tell us a little bit about that, how you got involved with them.
Well, I got involved because I was the CEO of the Graduate Institute in Connecticut, Bethany, Connecticut, which had been around for over 20 years when I joined in June of 2020. And COVID was not kind to that sweet school, and as it was not kind to very many, hundreds and hundreds of institutions of higher education. And our board wanted to kind of look for a larger partner or whatever. And so we found Salem University, which was very interested in the curriculum and the kind of the legacy of what the Graduate Institute had been. And so Salem University purchased the core curriculum of the Graduate Institute and me. So I was actually written in the deal. I had to go with it. So I became part of Salem back in January of 2022. And we began the process of building this Integrative Health Institute as something based on what the Graduate Institute had been doing, but in a whole new way, in a new structure, in a school which has both an actual campus in West Virginia, but also has hundreds of online students as well. So it was like a whole new kind of world, quite different. And so we've been gradually building, but one of our biggest interests from the beginning was recognizing that this health coaching field was a big opportunity. There's a lot of people who are nurses now who are really tired of working in hospitals. They've already left. And if they haven't left, they're like, what else could I be doing? They don't necessarily want to leave healthcare, but they want to leave the pressure and the chaos and all the things about being in a hospital or most clinics. And so they're interested, health coaching is a very attractive alternative because I know health coaches in Connecticut who their main job is working for Yale New Haven, but because Yale New Haven has a corporate client, their actual job is being a health coach at the headquarters of the corporate client, not being in the emergency room at Yale New Haven. So, health coaches become an option. Health coaching becomes an option for nurses, let's say. Health coaches don't have to have a health background because health coaching is as much about the coaching process, helping a person get clear on what their goals are and supporting them through that, but then using the principles of integrative health to support them. That's really the kind of the intention. So, so we identified health coaching as a big opportunity for educational institutions, let alone just for people that are interested in helping others. So we put a lot of our energy into building this program, launching it. It launched in May of 2023. We've got a new cohort starting at the end of August 28th of 2023, and put a lot of time and thought into making a program that would be quicker than a lot of them. A lot of the health coaching programs, as I'm sure you know, are 6 to 12 months. Ours is less than 4 months. A lot of them are in the $5,000 to $10,000 range or more. Ours is around $3,000. So it's much more affordable, and there's payment plans as well. It's much more affordable and much quicker, but still it's got a depthful approach. It's not just skimming the surface, not at all. So so that's kind of what brought me to Salem, and I'm still very involved in kind of building relationships. And even within Connecticut, I'm still, while I don't live there anymore, I still am very connected to the Connecticut Nurses Association. We do a lot of collaboration with them. And now that's spreading to the New Jersey Nurses Association. So, and I'm from New Jersey, so Jersey boy. So it's kind of fun to see that whole process. But that's, you know, there's a lot of other things that we are going to be releasing. There's, for example, we have an Integrative Health and Healing certificate. It's a graduate certificate for people that are, you know, interested in that sort of thing. We have other programs that are going to be rolling out, other programs that are not about graduate degrees or academics, but are more around continuing education. So like we do programs on HeartMath. I teach that because it's an incredibly useful tool for anybody. It could be a health professional or a parent or an athlete. One of my recent clients was this incredible soccer player who was on the U.S. national champion team, Syracuse University. When I started working with him, it was COVID time. He came over from Germany on a full scholarship. His first season, they only played 6 games out of 25 because of COVID, and he was quarantined for 6 weeks total, because whenever a team member was exposed, the entire team had to go quarantine. That's what was going on then. That all shifted finally, and 2 years later, that team that only played 6 games his first year was the national champion.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was like, whoa, Noah, man, to remember what it was like, because he started working with me 2 weeks before the lockdown started. And his life was thrown into total chaos. His family's back in Germany. He didn't know when he was going to get back. He didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on, right? And he made it through. And not only did he make it through, but you know, the incredible story. And now seeing him, he was at the White House a couple of weeks ago with the team, and it's like, oh my God, talk about turning lemons into lemonade. You know, really amazing breakthrough. So, you know, eventually the Integrative Health Institute is going to have a range of programs. We're especially focused on the integrative health coaching right now. But the last thing I'll say is that we have a nursing school at Salem University, and we're putting a lot more resources into it now, because part of what we want to do is change the way nurses are educated, and even other health professionals. So a holistic curriculum is what our nurse students will be going through. And any other health professionals, there's a health sciences school as well, will be learning holistic practices as part of their curriculum, not as just electives off to the side, but no. So this is the way Salem will be educating its nurses for the future and other healthcare people, is through holistic principles. So that gets me excited, that we can make a difference in the people who are on the front line so much of what goes on health wise. And if they can take better care of themselves, that is only going to help their patients and their clients.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it'll keep more people in the profession too, because
Absolutely.
you know, a lot of it's just burnout and, you know, frustration with the way that things are at a particular, you know, healthcare facility that they're at. So I totally see, I mean, nurses gravitating towards this. Absolutely. Um, is there any other, like, what other demographic do you see being attracted to integrative health coaching?
Well, I think anybody in the fitness or wellness industry in any area, not even as a professional not as a health professional. So fitness coaches, fitness trainers, athletic trainers, a lot of people who consider themselves in the wellness field, but aren't academically certified in something necessarily. And I think there's just other people that don't even necessarily have a background in health per se, but have this desire to help. And that's gotten stronger through these last few years. Like, we got to help each other. We got to do more for each other. So I think a lot of the people that are open and excited about this are younger, are millennial age. But I also know people that are more like Gen X or boomers even, who are looking at this as like a whole nother career, like a whole nother reset for them. Like you're out of some of the pressure you've had before, and this is a chance to just really give in a way that is maybe potentially a lot more fulfilling for you too.
Yeah. Also, sometimes I think people who've had a health crisis maybe and have decided to go a more natural route now actually want to help other people. And this is an avenue for that as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting you would say that because when I was going through all the cancer treatments, especially, we were training a lot of trainers at HeartMath. I was still CEO at HeartMath, and I would meet privately with the trainers, and I'd tell them what was going on for me. I'd tell them I'm in immunotherapy treatments right now. I just had the surgery last month, and I'd say, after having been in the hospital this much, and then when I got staph infections, I had to go back in the hospital for several days because that's a life-threatening condition. I said, I have more interest in helping the healthcare system than ever because I've been a patient so much.
Right.
I've
You went
I've
through it.
seen I've seen the chaos, but I've also seen with compassion in my heart, like, oh, these people, they're so caring and they're not getting supported
Yeah,
properly.
I
We
know.
need these tools. We need we need the mindset of care, and we got to integrate things, not keep separating things out into us versus them. So I think you're absolutely right. When you go through a health thing, oftentimes that does make you want to share more or help others even more because of what the insights you've gained yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have one special takeaway that you'd want our listeners to know?
I've used this phrase for many years, and I think it was the founder of HeartMath that I heard this first from. The phrase is, love is never wasted. And I am a believer in love. I'm a believer in the power of the heart to transform our lives and transform the world. And my intention will be forever that, if for those cynics that say, well, love is too soft, okay, show me when it was actually tried. I mean, yeah, they're legendary people like Jesus. He was all about love. And so he did pretty well. And many of the greatest people that we admire, Nelson Mandela, who I share a birthday with, uh, incredibly loving human being, to be able to greet his captors as he was released after 25 years in solitary confinement and forgive them, showed the power of love, and it
Right.
birthed a nation. And so love is an incredible power and the strongest power. And in my opinion, when we're having the bad times with someone or with ourselves, put out more love. When we are doubting ourselves, wondering how to build connection with that certain person, put out more love. Whether they ever feel it, whether they ever change, the love you're putting out is better for you than the alternative. And I believe on some level, even if they never consciously know that you did that, which you aren't supposed to tell them necessarily, on some level, their soul did receive that, and it will get used for their highest growth. So love is never wasted. So even if you feel like, well, he didn't change, I sent him all that love and he didn't change. Well, but and apparently you didn't either.
But you don't know that he didn't. I mean,
You don't
honestly,
know that he
you
did.
don't really know, and you
That's
don't,
right.
that's the thing. It's all
That's
energy,
right.
right? So, and at the end of the day, at the very least, you can say it helped you by putting out love.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Awesome. So, how can people learn more? Find out more about IHI and all that, we have the website if you're watching this, we actually have the website on there. But for those of you who are listening, it's www.salemu.edu. That's SALEMU.edu /integrative health institute. And then people can also email, correct, at IHI@salemu.edu.
Yes. So the email address, ihi@salemu.edu, will get you directly in touch with one of our team members for IHI. And you can just send an email saying, I'm really curious about what Bruce spoke of. And I want to learn more. And we'll start a dialogue with you and see what makes sense for you, whether it's the integrative health coaching. As we said earlier, the next cohort does start on August 28th. And then there'll be every month or two after that. So there'll be regular classes, but the next one is August 28th. You can learn about that or learn about other things that we have in store.
Awesome. Yep. And for those of you who read Essential Nabils and Natural Nutmeg, you'll see a big, beautiful ad in there, actually pointing to this podcast. So maybe that's how you found this. Either way, you can also go to the magazines as well, and you can learn more about IHI there. Again, it's www.salemu.edu /integrative health institute or IHI@salemu.edu for email. And I want to thank you so much, Bruce. This was awesome as always. We have a great time talking, and love all of the fascinating information, and excited for you and your new position there.
Thanks so much, Diane. Always a pleasure talking to you too. Thanks for the invitation.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank all of you for listening, and hope you guys all have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you back here next time.